Hello, hello. Welcome back to the AMA podcast. My name is Estrella, and today I'm joined by my co-host.
Hi, this is Julia, and we are also having two special guests today. We have the VP of the AMA, Matthew.
Hi, everybody. I'm Matthew, and today we're joined by Kevin from San Diego Mojo.
I'm
Who
Kevin.
is Kevin?
That's me, Director of Partnerships for the San Diego Mojo, the Pro Volleyball Federation, and this is my first live podcast, so thanks for having me, everybody.
Thanks so much
It's
for
amazing.
coming.
Happy
So
to
exciting.
have you on.
Yeah, of course.
Well, to get us started, to get the ball rolling, Kevin, we're kind of going to hit you with something hard-hitting. We're on a college campus, and NCAA brand and partnerships have been a huge topic of conversation in the sports world for like the last year or so. And particularly, people are finding that female athletes are really loved in terms of brand and partnerships. And so new questions are being asked. If a female athlete is able to get paid $100,000 for a sponsorship, why can't she get paid X amount in her salary? So from where you're standing, how does that impact where your job is heading, and how does this influence or empower the sports industry from where you're standing?
Great question. I think that sponsorship is very trend-based, and much like a lot of different marketing formats, sponsorship is very much being aware of what is currently cutting edge and the direction that things are heading. So a big part of my job is being on top of those trends and trying to identify opportunities for brands in different categories based on, where we see wins happening in the industry. So obviously right now, one of those big wins is women's sports, and we've absolutely, taken full advantage. But it's part of a larger question of, we have definitely tried to align ourselves with the right people. I think that, especially in women's sponsorship, there's just such a huge play there on the mission, on female empowerment. It's a really important message. And for us at the Mojo, it's very important that we align ourselves with partners that are passionate about that message, but also understand that there is a huge potential for growth in the sport, both with the PVF and WNBA and WSL and all these leagues that are seeing, just massive explosions in viewership and sponsorship and sponsorship participation. So I think it's a very complex thing, but the bottom line is that women's sports are just exploding right now, and we want to make sure that we're capitalizing not just in the right ways, but for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And so it looks different on a case-by-case basis, but being aligned with specific brands for specific reasons is kind of the thesis point there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're there at Women's Sports Succeeding, I wanted to give a shout-out to our Aztecs women's basketball team for becoming Mountain West
There we go.
champions.
Yes.
Congratulations, everybody.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
incredible.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Love to see it. Yeah. And obviously we share a venue with them too. Of
course.
Oh.
Thanks
It's a win
having
for
us.
everybody
Yeah,
there.
yeah. For those that aren't aware, listeners, we do play at Viejas Arena, so I'm sure most of your listening base is very familiar with that venue. So
Oh, yes.
You know exactly
for
where to find the
sure.
Mojo.
yeah, it's a great spot.
What's like one thing sports fans don't realize about how teams make money through sponsorships?
Yeah. So there's sort of two different revenue generating buckets, typically speaking, and that would be ticketing and sponsorship. So obviously those are two huge priorities of any sports team. I think something that probably goes unnoticed and under-recognized is the scale of these sponsorship deals. I think the key difference between ticketing and sponsorship is that, and not to say that one's better than the other, they're just different. Sponsorship is far less transactional. There's more of a relationship-based component, and typically speaking, those deals take much longer to execute. So, ticketing deals are kind of a phone call or two and some rapport building and kind of things move along from there. But sponsorship is a large team working with a large team, typically on a B2B scale. And those deals last come to fruition over a much larger period of time. Mm-hmm. So I think just overall, when you watch the Lakers and you see their jersey patch, you might sort of passively notice the brand and maybe be inclined to engage with them, but you may not think about the amount of work that went into it. And for me, that sort of process was super interesting, and the reason why I wanted to get into sponsorship because it's almost like a giant puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, on that same note, on that same topic, when you're finding a sponsorship, when you're trying to find out who aligns with whatever team you're working with at the time, I know you've done different things, experience, you've been all over the place, but are you vetting them for what they can get out of us, like what benefit that they can get out of the team that you're working with, or like what specific attributes are you looking for in sponsorships? Like I saw you guys work with Scripps right now, with a couple of sports stretching sponsorships, things like that.
Yeah. So it's needs based. All of this is needs based. So the goal here with every sponsorship is that it's mutually beneficial. That's kind of the, if every single sponsorship is mutually beneficial, then we've done our job. And that remains true across every league and every scale, every size of deal. So the goal is, when I have every conversation, I'm trying to identify where it makes sense to work together. So as much as we'd like to capture, every brewery and every, restaurant and place in San Diego and have them contribute to us financially, the sponsorship, it doesn't always make sense.
Yeah.
And again, who you align yourself with matters. So because sponsorship is such an affinity play for viewers, it's really, really important that we portray ourselves with people and brands that we think we align with. So again, going back to that mission, it's important that fans see our logo and fans want to come to a game and want to purchase merchandise and be involved.
That they
on the corporate
identify with
side.
it.
I mean,
Yeah,
even
it's
myself,
important.
like I'm wearing a
Yeah.
a logo from.
Exactly.
I just went to a tennis tournament, so and
Right.
seeing those the patches like you were saying,
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, they were wearing Motorola Razor patches. Excuse me, and that's just something that you just don't think about. You're just like, oh, like they're wearing a Chipotle
You
patch.
don't. Yeah, you don't actively. But at the same time, if it was a brand that was at odds with, the team it was sponsoring, you probably notice that. So there's certain categories, there's teams that avoid certain types of sponsorships because they don't believe it represents their brand. There's no limitation as far as I understand in most sports over like cannabis partnerships, but some teams choose not to because they think it portrays their brand a certain way, and that's not to say that it does. I'm not speaking down on those teams, but it's just a delicate balance, and it's really a matter of who you partner with is also very much an extension of the team. So you got to make sure it makes sense and is mutually beneficial. So yeah.
And like, what's the biggest difference working between an already established team like the Arizona Coyotes or Chargers versus building partnerships for a new pro team like the Mojo?
Yeah, there's a ton of differences, and a lot of challenges too. I think, let's use the Coyotes as an example. I'd love to say that it is an established brand in the sense that the NHL has a very, very solid viewership base, and obviously is appreciated and watched by a lot of people. But at the same time, the Coyotes moved from one side of the valley to the other, about 30 minutes to the east, to ASU's venue. So we played at ASU's 4,000-seat hockey arena. It was completely, groundbreaking thing. I want to say groundbreaking. I'd say it was it was different. It wasn't a great thing, but the goal was always to get a new venue and to upgrade eventually. And so that, I think, is a perfect, sort of case to show all of the challenges that come with each individual team sponsorship, because we were playing in a brand new venue, and so are the Mojo, right? So along with that comes an entire new rate card of assets, and what I mean by that is different signage spaces, different things that you can take advantage of, entirely new channels to market on that are completely different based on what team you work with, what market you're in, and venue plays a big part. So it's a very long-winded answer, but what I'm trying to say is I think the challenges are unique here in the sense that we're building from the ground up from a league level. And so rather than stepping into hockey, which is hockey, we're stepping into volleyball, which very much has a strong youth foundation, but has never been executed at a pro level to the scale that we're trying to. So I think, there's a lot of challenges in each situation, but it looks different. So it's hard to give like specifics on what things change based on location, but like think of venue, think of all the channels you market on, and think of how your viewership or how your demographic changes per team. Long answer, but
And how does social media? How do you think social media plays into that?
Yeah, social media is a huge part of it too. And digital, I think, is something that every team is trying to get a handle on right now. Like everyone's trying to figure out their social strategy and what works. And right now, especially with the rise of TikTok and those platforms, people are trying to figure out how to capitalize on it. And I think I'm not by no means a subject matter expert on social media, but it's been a huge weapon for us because I think that smaller market teams, teams with, I would say, less reach than like NFL or NHL, like us, let's be honest, can really benefit from that digital media strategy.
100%.
You're almost required to pivot to those types of channels because we don't have as many people in the building. We don't have the same viewership as the Padres do. You know, it's just like, it'd be ridiculous to expect that. And so being strategic in other ways and taking advantage of digital, which has zero cost to us to execute, is really important. And we're still building our team, so we don't have social media in-house quite yet. We have marketing, and they kind of operate and manage all of that, but it's something that we really have been trying to emphasize, and we've been crafting our digital strategy, you know, nonstop for the last few months. So
Yeah, definitely super important.
Yeah.
Nice.
So what digital strategies have been pretty successful lately to help gain awareness and generate leads?
yeah, so I think one space that I think is really interesting that I dealt with directly in Arizona was digital signage. There's a huge value in those in particular because they're so easy to execute again, and because they're also
Can you define that for the viewers at home?
yes, I'm speaking in sponsorship words right now.
Points to
I need to be more
self.
specific. Yeah, so to explain further, if you've watched closely in the NBA or the NHL recently, you might notice that some of the on-court logos are magically being changed during the gameplay.
my
You
God,
might
yeah.
wonder,
Yeah.
who's going onto the court and switching those things out. And in reality, they're all actually AI placed overlays on the court or on the ice, and it's a really, really incredible technology that was being developed when I was in Arizona, and I actually oversaw the execution and kind of the activation of those assets.
You were more
So-
experience-based then, I believe, right? So you got to be more involved in how that worked and things like that?
Yes, and I'll actually get into that in a second. And so I think the digital signage is huge because you can sell more inventory. You can have it rotate during the game, so you can have more partners. It's extremely prominent on the broadcast, so it's easy to see it. And it's sort of all the benefits of an on-court logo implanted or stickered on there without the operational rigor of having to, put it on and order the signage and the vinyl, whatever, and so it's just very flexible. So that's one space that the MLS is winning, that the NHL is winning in, the NBA is. I'd love for us to start to do it, but it's obviously you need the technology and the infrastructure. I imagine that the league will go in that direction in the future, and a lot of leagues are. So that's one space I think it's really.
I did not realize that was AI
Yeah,
generated.
Yeah,
Wow.
they're slotted and they're very valuable. One of those slots goes for quite a bit at an NHL level. So
Oh my gosh.
I'd be surprised. Yeah, and it changes the in-game experience too. And tangentially, not just about the sponsorship side, but I think, in the NHL, I'm a huge hockey fan, and I've really enjoyed they added like digital boards, so where you usually go to a game and see advertisers on the hockey boards. Those are all now animated, and not only are they able to advertise partners, but they can also do goal graphics and all these cool, unique logos and flashes on them. So they enhance the in-game experience, and they provide an opportunity for partners. And so that's a huge way that I think they're winning right now. Yeah.
And it seems like you kind of, given all of your experience, you seem to know the back end, the ins and out, and it kind of has obviously led you to where you are. How have those pivots between teams, different roles? I know you were an account exec at the Chargers, now you're director of partnerships. How did all of those pivots get you to where you are now, and how did that transition work for you? Did it all fall in line?
Yeah, I'd like to think that it did. I'm in a good spot. I think,
You hope.
but sports is super unique, and I think it, the way that you have to prepare yourself to work in sports, and the way that you get into sports is one of a kind. But I think that my sort of bottom line when I first got started was trying to figure out, okay, I'm going to try everything and see what I like. And by chance, that actually ended up being the perfect strategy to get into the sports industry, because I think getting a breadth of experience and trying a little bit of everything really benefits you in that you meet more people and you find what you're good at, and you better be good at what you're doing. Because obviously it's a competitive industry, right?
Oh, yeah.
Let's just be
Oh,
honest
yeah.
here. So
All around.
I heard a lot that the best way to get into sports is work for activations, for
Yeah.
teams, team activations, and grow throughout the grow throughout the team mostly.
Grow with
That's
the
where
team.
working with a team. Maybe with brands, it's a little bit different, less activation.
Yeah, it's a great way to do it. I think partnerships isn't really emphasized. Like I said before, it's not really emphasized. In my undergraduate studies, there wasn't a lot of information on partnerships. Even
I agree.
Even now there isn't.
No, there's not. And in my sports marketing classes, there wasn't. And it's such a vital piece of any organization, both on the sports side and on the brand side. You know, it's the transferable skills, but it's not emphasized nearly enough. And I think that people probably look at it as just sales, honestly. From what I've heard, a lot of people that are interested in working in sports think of sponsorship as just like, oh, it's the extension of ticket sales. So it's like, and in a sense it is, you know, but at the same time, it's very much its own thing, and it's absolutely vital. So I think, yes, activation experience is good, but partnerships, and I'm about to go on a whole another rant, is usually divided into three spaces, which is sales, activation, and fulfillment. So those are kind of the
Can
three
we
different buckets.
elaborate on
Yeah.
activation platforms
we
maybe
can.
a little bit?
You want platforms
Or just like how that, you know, integrates into everything that you're saying.
Totally, yes. So to
Just
give,
a little bit.
to give some more information to any aspiring partnerships people out there, I'd say. So when I say those three buckets, it's as simple as it sounds, really. I mean, sales obviously goes to market and closes sponsorship deals. Activation would be the members of the partnership team responsible for managing the day-to-day process for that partner. So they actually would go through and, you know, execute the signage, meaning they'd go and, you know, I'm obviously simplifying here, but like they'd order the signage, they'd make sure it's satisfactory, they'd provide the mid and full season recaps for the partner. They're basically their liaison to the organization, so that's what the activation rep does. And then the fulfillment side, which also might be called in different places partnership marketing or partnership solutions, they're all kind of three of the same for the most part, provides sort of assistance on the business intelligence data analytics side. So if one of those three things interests you, there are routes to take for all three in partnerships, and all are very important to the process. I wouldn't say one is like, you know, dominant over the other. What was your question again? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you answered it. Just to elaborate on activation and how that works in. But into another question, what is a common mistake or that people make when building these partnerships, or a common mistake, or even a mistake that you made when you first started building these relationships? And
that's a good question. There's a lot of places it can go wrong, that's for sure. I think maybe the most common one is not providing the right activations for the right people. So, you know, a big part of the sales process for me that I'm still refining now, and obviously I'm young in my career, is trying to figure out how to identify needs with different brands. And that's kind of the big component of any conversation you have around partnerships, is that, you know, why do they need this? Why do I need this?
the gaps.
What's the reason for them to partner with
mutual
us?
benefit that can
Yeah,
happen?
because there's tangible benefits to partnering with sports teams, but to be honest with you, they're not extremely. I don't want to say not extremely positive, but they're not extremely convincing on their own, right? Marketing is kind of a weird thing where, you know, I can't, and a lot of teams, most teams can't promise, you know, extremely valuable ROI in a sports partnership. It's not what you do it for. It's not. And if you're doing it for that reason, you're probably in it for the wrong reasons. The goal is to
Probably
figure
not doing
out.
well.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
The goal is to figure out, you know, how to sell them on why the affiliation with your fans is good for them, right? So it has to be a match in that sense. And so trying to figure out how to communicate that value and pitch that value is something I'm still trying to figure out. It's something I'm still working on right now with the Mojo, because it's a different value proposition than I'm used to selling. And so it's being, you know, individual in each conversation.
I feel like you have to get like a good understanding of what community you're in more than anything, because sports are very based in the city. Like San Diego, I'm not from here. I'm from LA. Obviously, people are diehard out in LA. But I didn't realize, being in San Diego, I work for San Diego Football Club, how in tune people are with the city. Like the 18 cities, people
pride.
take it seriously. Yes, it's a it's a big thing, and I think finding out what those communities appreciate and value is huge.
Totally.
And so
Absolutely.
that's to segue to move with that, I guess. How do you feel like building relationships in a new city has been for you?
It's different. It's different. It's been a challenge in the two markets that I've worked in, Arizona and San Diego. They're very different. Understanding who your fan base is and what brands care about in the market is paramount. I think teams spend a lot of money to figure out what their fan base looks like, and put a lot of resources behind understanding the data of their demographic and who an average Mojo or Coyotes or Dodgers fan, who are they, right? Because it gives you more power and more weapons to work with in a conversation with the brand. So it's all part of a learning process. I think that one big thing you can do is look at where brands are spending. So we have a lot of resources, like there's a platform called Sponsor United that gives you access to see where other brands are partnering with sports teams. It's sports specific, with different sports teams, what assets they have. They're doing influencer marketing, and it gives you an idea of what they value, right? Because every brand's going to value different things. So I guess different markets may value different things, and there's obviously some natural fits there with, if I'm selling Minnesota Twins partnerships, it probably makes sense to go after, tractor companies or something like that, because it's endemic to the market, right? So it's a matter of identifying, again, what makes sense for San Diego, and in that case, for me, I'd love to tell you exactly what's perfect for us, but I'm still figuring that out. And
do you have a dream partnership?
I was
maybe
just gonna ask.
Dream partnership.
Like it could be literally anything in general,
Like
maybe
anybody in
or even a dream team that you would want to work for.
Well, wait. Start with the partnership.
Partner
A
and
dream
then
partnership
You know,
in San
the
Diego.
Aztecs work a lot with Blender. Maybe Blender could work with Mojo.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Manscaped.
I would love
They're
to.
looking for ambassadors.
There we go. Yeah. I think, in terms of the ideal brand, it's tough to say, because not to skirt the question, but it's really going to vary. I've been surprised so many times when I've talked to brands or had conversations about what they're interested in that I can't even tell you how many times this happened. So I think in terms of an ideal, I might identify an ideal partner at a organizational level, but the match might not be there at all. So I think if I had to pick a really good one for us, I would love to continue to work with national television brands because it gives us a larger platform. And that's probably more of a league level deal, so that may not directly be involve the Mojo.
But that's a big vision.
But it's huge. And I think with how important that national television access is, I would love to see us to continue to work with, NBC or be on ESPN Plus for most of our games. Like those
I was
going to
ask about streaming too, because
Yes.
national television, live television, at least is just not what is happening these days.
Yes,
so it's a completely evolved platform as well to be aware of these other platforms like ESPN Plus that advertise different things, and there are different channels within those because ESPN Plus won't have every sports event on it too.
And then it's also interesting because depending on the sport, like I played volleyball my whole life basically. I don't think that people realize how much they love volleyball.
People have no idea.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
I love volleyball.
I had no idea. I had no clue how much
such
it was
an
there.
exciting sport. Maybe that's a bias, but I feel like it's not televised enough. It's just not broadcast.
And especially
enough.
women's, I feel too, like you don't really know until you genuinely like watch the game and you're like involved in like how intense
it's hard to communicate.
Gets.
It's hard to communicate unless you go out and see it. But
which sucks because it's the men's sports that are so emphasized, but these women are incredible on these teams, and they're just not advertised.
It is incredible, and it's the number one girls' high school sport in America. So that's insane. But also,
I did not know that.
Yeah, there's a little fact for you. And one thing that I think we've been really intentional about, and you sort of touched on it a little bit, is that we try not to position ourselves too much as a, women's sports league. We're a major professional sports league, and I think that distinction is important because as soon as you categorize yourself in that way, you're limiting yourself. So, we don't. This might be crazy to say that we're on par with the NBA and the NFL, and obviously the scale is different. But you know what I'm saying when I say that. We are in the same league as them, and
not like WNBA, NBA. Like you are. This
you
is
are.
the sport.
Yes,
like you're
WNBA
all together.
Is pro basketball. NBA is pro basketball.
Yes.
It's not. It's detrimental to say that the WNBA is It's just basketball. It's pro basketball.
There's no
Pro
MNBA, so it's like
yeah,
Yes,
it's
exactly.
pro basketball,
Yeah.
and that's really important for us. And I think that's going to do us a lot in the future. And just
I agree.
growing the league and building the league, and I think it's an important perspective to have that honestly I wasn't aware of when I came into it. And I think people have been very receptive of that mission. So. Yeah.
You're obviously young, hungry. You're on the rise in the industry.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea for like what's next for you, like in this step, or what you're currently trying to learn, trying to grow?
Yeah, I mean, sponsorship is so practical. It's very skills based. It's very skills based. It's very process oriented, and there's a lot of hard skills associated with that. That's the term I was looking for. It's a lot of hard skills, much more than you'd think. So when I talk about trends, you really got to be familiar with what's happening where and why it's happening and why partnerships are happening the way that they are elsewhere. I think if I had to say what my goals would be, obviously I'd love to be in a leadership position. I'm not gonna narrow that down to what league I want to work in. I'm open to anything. It's really where it takes
Sports.
me. But it'll take me to the right place.
sports
But
fan.
I would love to be in an executive position. I would love to lead a team and share the same sort of learnings that I found in my career and pass that knowledge along. But I know that to get there, I definitely have to continue to develop my business acumen and my sponsorship knowledge and learn what assets benefit what businesses and why and so on and so forth. So there's endless knowledge there, just like there is with any other skill that you can learn. And I think I need to continue to develop that. But yeah, being an executive role would be great.
Nice.
100%.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I guess to sort of begin to wrap it up, we like to ask every guest, what's one piece of advice you've learned throughout your career? Flip around, become us. What would you give us?
There we go.
What would you give
Not
young
some,
Kevin? What would you tell 21-year-old Kevin?
I'm going to try and not make it sports specific because I don't think a lot of the people that are listening work in or want to work in sports.
You'd be
I
surprised.
think
You
really.
would. Yeah,
So
I just got a
surprised.
sports internship myself, so
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I love it, but either way, I want to make this applicable to everybody. I'd say be buoyant. That's the term that I like to use, and sort of one of the pillars that I try to rely on. I'd say that being buoyant doesn't just mean that you're able to take on adversity and take a no for a job interview, but I think it goes beyond that and applies to any job context because there's a lot of times that I've been discouraged on a day-to-day basis when deals don't go the way that I want, or maybe a partner comes to a game and the activation that we put on for them looks horrible. And
it's not the
happened.
satisfaction.
Yeah, it's happened. It's definitely happened. So being buoyant and always getting back to equilibrium, not just for yourself, but for the people you work with is just, you cannot, be a team player without it. And I think it's extremely essential working in sports to do so, but it's important in any context and it's a way to always uplift people and still be able to take hits. Like there's days where I have, crappy days, but if I'm buoyant, I'm always coming back to the top. I'm always going to get back to the spot. Yeah, I'm always getting back to the spot. Maybe it's a different way of saying, get hit and get up, but
Get back on that horse.
get back on the horse. Get back on the
It's
court.
real. It's not
It's
just
so
some
real.
cheesy advice that
No.
people give. You really need to,
Yeah.
be resilient, I feel like is what you're saying.
In a
Maybe
different way.
little bit.
Yeah, in a different way. I think you're allowed to break sometimes, though, but it's figure out why it happened and
Those are the growth periods.
gather yourself. Oh yeah, making mistakes. You got to be able to make mistakes. Let yourself make mistakes.
Yeah.
Force yourself to make mistakes.
Is
Were
there
you
anything?
making a lot of mistakes in the beginning of your
Yeah.
career?
Yeah, I still am. Yeah, I still am. There's still times that I put something on a proposal and doesn't make as much sense as I thought it did initially. But when it actually happens, and that's really important because if you're not taking a risk, you're not innovating, and so it's both personally and professionally. You got to take risks like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any exciting upcoming events with the Mojo or anything that the
Yes.
viewers should be aware of?
You're
or...
in peak work mode right now.
Yeah.
I'm advertising right now. Come out to a game. They're $5 for students at the door.
$5.
$5,
Did y'all hear that?
you guys.
That's a steal. You can't even get
That's
a
a
foot
date
long.
night.
All right, you guys, everybody.
You can't even
go
get
to
a
the
pack
Mojo
of
game.
gum
Go to
for
the
$5.
Yeah, go to the Mojo game. We can talk sponsorship. You can hang out.
Meet Kevin.
But yeah, there's the selling. There's
The
the
guy in the
selling point.
suit.
Yeah, the guy in the suit for the casual podcast. It's yeah, you know, we're working on developing some more community events. We're getting involved in the community events, but we're not putting on any of our own stuff just right now because we're trying to focus on making the game experience as good as we can. But I'd say come out to a game. It's as simple as that. Come out to a game. It'll sell itself. And, you know, there's a reason why I chose to work here. I think that, you know, it's a super exciting atmosphere. It's a super exciting future and a bright future for the PVF and women's sports in general. Come be a part of it, you know?
Yeah.
Don't, why not? Come check it out.
Yeah.
See
Be a
what
part of
happens.
history.
Come be a part of history, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be there. I don't
Yeah.
know about you guys. I
Come
think
check
That
it out.
sounds
We will all
fun.
be there.
Yeah, we'll get the
absolutely.
whole AMA to
There we
pull
go.
up to a game and start
you guys.
cheering.
Of course. It's the best
Heck
in the house. Yeah, of course.
Well, Kevin, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate your wisdom.
This
I
has
know
been
all
so
of you
awesome.
sports nerds. I hope you were locked into this episode.
I was locked in.
There's a lot of good advice, a lot of good information. Ladies and gentlemen, we give you Kevin Bowers. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you
on
so
today.
much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
start
all.
activating.
And feel free, if you are interested in working in sports, to reach out on LinkedIn. Connect with me. I'm happy to always talk about this stuff. And again, I'm always learning too, but, you know, sharing knowledge is important. And yeah.
We'll post all his socials with our advertising as well so that you can make sure to connect with him. So thank you guys for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
See you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.